Another no-hose-barred electoral battle in the offing. In about a month, India will hold its general election, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP appear unstoppable.
The BJP will break its own record of 2014 and 2019 and set new record in 2024.
High hopes, says the opposition.
Finally, the BJP's bluff will be called. All their spin doctoring, all their falsifications, all their fabrications will not come to anything.
When the world's largest democracy heads to the polls, the battle will take place on many fronts. From identity politics
हिंदू वोट एक तरफ जाएंगे, मुसलमान वोट एक तरफ जाएंगे,
to bread and butter issues.
हस्बैंड की डेथ होने के बाद सरकार की तरफ से जो चीज़ मिल रही है उसी चीज़ से मेरे खाने पीने के आगे मैं बढ़ रही हूँ.
Will Modi lead the BJP to his biggest victory yet? Or will the opposition mount a comeback? It's November 2023, and Modi magic has worked again. The Indian Prime Minister led his right-wing BJP party to another historic victory in the state elections. The BJP swept 3 key Hindi heartland states of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. The lone victory for the opposition Congress party came in the southern state of Telangana, where the BJP has never been a major political force. This state elections could be a portent of what's to come in the looming 2024 general election.
The state elections is largely referred to as the semi-final to the national election. And the results were pretty one-sided. It was Prime Minister Modi's party, the BJP, which won all the states in the North India. And the main opposition party, Congress, had to satisfy with just one state election in South India.
The defeat in the 3 states is a big setback for the Congress, because Congress was expected to definitely win Chhattisgarh, and many people expected Congress certainly to win Madhya Pradesh. Yes, there were ifs and buts about Rajasthan, but Congress losing all the three states was a big setback for the Congress.
India's general election is expected to be called between April and May, where Modi is likely to seek a 3rd term. If the state elections are a barometer, then the BJP has all the momentum. Nonetheless, the opposition remains defiant.
I don't think naturally that the state elections have any bearing on national elections, where the national agenda is actually what is discussed, which becomes a part of the narrative and the discourse. In this national elections, I don't think it will be local issues, but it will be national issues. We have our own set of narratives. We are very, very forceful in actually telling the people about that, in earning the trust of the people. So I think that there will be a clash of these kind of ideological narratives in the national election.
The opposition has been on a back foot since Modi came to power 10 years ago. In 2014, the Congress-led United Progressive Alliance, or UPA government, had been in power for a decade. But in the final years of its rule, it faced charges of massive corruption and inefficiency. The BJP, led by Narendra Modi, took full advantage.
So that was an issue on which BJP contested, on the issue of corruption. They charged the government of being corrupt, and they were very clever in relating that price rise was also very high at that time. They were able to relate the two things, convey to the people in very clear terms that prices are high because the ministers are corrupt, the government is corrupt, people are suffering because the ministers have been able to fill their own pocket.
नारे उनके थे, अच्छे दिन के वादे थे, 2 करोड़ प्रतिवर्ष रोजगार की उम्मीदें थीं, भ्रष्टाचार को ख़त्म करने, महंगाई को ख़त्म करने, ये तमाम सारे जो वादे थे उस पर लोगों ने अमल किया. और यही वजह थी कि 3 दशक के बाद पहली बार कोई पार्टी पूर्ण बहुमत के साथ आती है. और नरेंद्र मोदी नो डाउट कि उस समय एक बहुत बड़ी भूमिका में नज़र आ रहे थे, लोगों की उम्मीद बने.
Since coming to power, the BJP has claimed many electoral victories, including retaining power in the 2019 contest. Is 2024 shaping up to be Modi's biggest win yet? The BJP has got wind in its sails, claiming it is responsible for India's stellar economic performance.
India today in the last 10 years has risen from a rank 11 in economic power to 5th, surpassing United Kingdom. India today is the 3rd largest automobile industry, surpassing Japan. India became the 4th biggest, strongest and largest stock market of the world. Our defense exports are risen by 106%. Our chemical exports are up by 300%. 13.5 crore people, or houses rather, which is translated to around 135 million, didn't have water in their taps which have been delivered. 400 million people, fresh bank accounts have been opened who didn't have access to banking system. There are around 135 million houses which have got toilets for the first time, benefiting 350 million women who used to go out in the open fields. Today, India is hoisting their flag on a moon. We accomplished the Chandrayaan. The voter of India votes on a report card. That report card is seen every cyclic 5 years. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vote card is full of green lines, full of high-flying passing marks.
The growing economy has helped micro and small-scale entrepreneurs like Ravi Sood. He makes precision equipment for other industries, mainly the automobile sector.
The biggest reforms have taken place after this new regime has taken over in 2014, which are a game changer. In fact, if given a choice, I would like to start my career now, because now the India is a land of opportunities. At this moment, there is so much opportunity in India to do business that it is difficult to describe in words. We have all kinds of startups and whole set of new ideas. Sky is the limit. And even the brick and mortar factory is no longer required to do, something big.
As president of the Badli industrial area outside Delhi, which houses around 400 small businesses, Ravi's sentiments are shared by many.
The biggest change for better which has taken place is that the demonetization has brought businesses on board. The people who were doing business without paperwork, without billing, that has gone down. GST is another big reform. And with the GST, the paperwork is all gone. So if you duly file your returns in time, there's absolutely no problem. Earlier, you have to go to the excise office or the sales tax office, so they would come to your factory and they will do audit. So that was a lot of, it was a real pain in the neck. And invariably, if you have done right, you have to bribe them to get a clean sheet. So there is no hanky-panky now. The notices are automatic, they are computer generated.
Despite Ravi's optimism, it's not all smooth sailing. One area of concern is the growing economic inequality as the country progresses at a fast pace. The World Inequality Report 2022 says since the mid-1980s, deregulation and liberalization policies have led to one of the most extreme increases in income and wealth inequality observed in the world. It describes India as a poor and very unequal country with an affluent elite. In the coming campaign, it is one chink in Modi's armor that the opposition will be keen to exploit.
You have these huge claims, you're out to become the 3rd largest in the world. Please explain this to a poor person who's going to buy vegetables and can't buy them because the prices are so high. Please tell him and try and convince him. I'm sure he'll jump with joy when he hears that India is the 5th largest economy, but he still can't go and buy vegetables. I'm sure it'll be a great impact on him.
According to the same report, in India, the top 10% and top 1% hold respectively 57% and 22% of total national income. The bottom 50%, their share is just 13%.
Listen, What is happening here is that there is, some people are making a lot of money. The high frequency numbers which come in the formal economy suggest that some parts of the economy are doing tremendously well. Of course they are. But the gap between the rich and the poor has increased.
I think all countries around the world are largely seeing greater amount of inequality. That is not something which is an India-specific phenomena. What policy alternatives does the opposition have? They are ruling a good number of states in India. Have they presented an alternative economic model before the Indians? The answer sadly is no.
Yet, with Modi enjoying a 76% approval rating, making him the most popular global leader according to Morning Consult, his party members do not believe the opposition's tactics will work.
The recent state elections is a stamp by the electorate on the development-oriented politics and the rejection of opposition's negative politics, politics of corruption and politics advancing crime.
And as Prime Minister Modi seeks a third term, he's doing more than just rest on his economic laurels. He's also campaigning on Hindu nationalism, epitomized by one of India's most important and most controversial holy sites.
आने वाला समय अब सफलता का है, आने वाला समय अब सिद्धि का है। ये भव्य राम मंदिर साक्षी बनेगा भारत के उत्कर्ष का, भारत के उदय का। ये भव्य राम मंदिर साक्षी बनेगा भव्य भारत के अभ्युदय का, विकसित भारत का।
All roads lead to Ayodhya. Tens of thousands gathered in the temple city as the Prime Minister inaugurated the Ram Temple, the Ram Mandir. This is a sacred site for Hindus, believed by some to be the birthplace of Lord Ram.
Opening of the Ram Temple is a turning point in India's trajectory of growth. Opening of the Ram Temple is not restricted to only faith. Opening of Ram Temple symbolizes unification of society. Opening of Ram Temple symbolizes unification of all the people of all walks of life. Ram Temple also symbolizes India's growth story. A 500-year-long wait has come to an end.
But where the temple stands is the site of decades of violent clashes between Hindus and Muslims. A centuries-old mosque, known as the Babia Masjid, had once stood here. In 1992, the mosque was pulled down by Hindu zealots, known as Kharsavats. Thousands of people died in the communal clashes that ensued. Finally, in 2019, the country's Supreme Court allowed the disputed land to be handed over to the Hindus to build the temple. For 58-year-old Amar Singh, a school principal in Ayodhya, this has been a long-awaited day.
अयोध्या की कंडीशन उस तरह की थी जैसे एक डेड बॉडी होती है, वो विदाउट सोल, बिना आत्मा के एक शरीर। अयोध्या की पहचान भगवान श्री राम के जन्मभूमि के रूप में थी। अयोध्या जो हमारी जो है हिंदुओं के लिए एक गौरव होना चाहिए था, उसका ये गौरवहीन हो गई थी।
Amar Singh has lived in Ayodhya all his life, bearing witness to the communal violence in the early 90s.
बहुत बुरा समय था वो, इतना माने शहर के लिए, इस जनपद के लिए बड़ा दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण समय था। हजारों कारसेवकों के ऊपर जो है गोलियां चलाई गईं जो निहत्थे थे, वो उसमें से काफ़ी संख्या में, सैकड़ों की संख्या में लोग मारे गए थे। उस समय 92 में जो है पूरे देश में जो है इसको लेके बहुत ज़्यादा संघर्ष हुआ और वो ये भगवान जो स्थान था वो तो हटा दिया गया, वहाँ पे एक चबूतरा बनाया गया। उसी चबूतरे पे जो है भगवान की मूर्ति उसी तरह से उसी स्टेज में चूँकि स्टे हो गया कोर्ट से, और वहाँ पे एक त्रिपाल का जो है एक टेंट बनाकर भगवान को उसी में स्थापित कर दिया गया। ये बहुत शर्मनाक था, एक माने हिंदू धर्म के लिए तो बहुत ही जो है शर्म की बात थी कि भगवान को जो है टेंट में रखा गया था। वो 500 वर्षों तक जो है संघर्ष का एक लंबा इतिहास यहाँ पर चलता रहा, बहुत लोग मारे गए, बड़ा जो है रक्त रंजित इतिहास रहा। इस मंदिर की स्थापना के बाद जो है शांति तो रहेगी ही, इसके साथ साथ समृद्धि पूरे देश की, इस प्रदेश की और हमारे जनपद की भी समृद्धि पूर्ण रूप से जो है समृद्धि प्राप्त होगी।
In the decades when the holy idol was kept in the tin, 86-year-old Satyendran Das led the temple rites each day.
28 वर्ष तक रामलला की पूजा हम त्रिपाल में किए, त्रिपाल में थे। तमाम समस्याएं थी, झंझावात की, चाहे गर्मी हो, चाहे बरसात हो, चाहे ठंडी हो, सब प्रकार की परेशानियां वहाँ रही और उसको झेलते हुए 28 वर्ष तक हम वहाँ पर पूजा करते रहे। इस आशा में रहे कि वो समय ज़रूर आएगा कि जब रामलला का भव्य मंदिर बनेगा और रामलला उसमें विराजमान होंगे। वह आशा फलीभूत होने वाली है।
But over this momentous celebratory event hangs a dark cloud. Modi's tenure has been plagued by accusations of fomenting Hindu nationalism, which the BJP denies. Critics say his term coincided with the marginalization of minorities, especially Muslims. Between 2014 and 2020, the National Crime Records Bureau recorded a 500% increase in cases filed under Section 153A of the Penal Code, India's version of hate speech law.
The BJP's default position is polarization, right? It thrives on antagonism between various groups, between various social groups, between religions, between words. I mean, they created a dichotomous relationship. Their default position is always a binary position. Civilizational conflicts, you know, going back to the past, always reaching out to the past to create kind of discord between people, between communities, between subjects, between concepts. That has been their position throughout.
The opposition charge that the BJP has stirred the communal violence pot of the country falls flat when seen from the lens of statistics in the country, lacks credence. From 2014 to 2024, India has not witnessed any large incident of communal violence. Today, even if the charge of communal violence was true, how come Gujarat, where there are 17 seats are dominated by Muslims, out of that 14 were won by the Bharatiya Janata Party and Congress did not even open an account?
40-year-old Muhammad Gufran Siddiqui watched the opening of the Ram Temple. He's a Muslim living in Ayutthaya and runs an NGO called Awadh People's Forum, which encourages dialogue among youths. He traces some of the current communal tensions to the temple clashes of 1992.
92 में जिस तरह के हाल थे वो बहुत वो था, वो एक बबल की तरीके था, मतलब कि आया हुआ घटना और उसके बाद जो है भारतीय सोसाइटी ने उस बात को लेकर के एक लंबा जो है मंथन किया, लंबा डिस्कशन रहा। नैरेटिव बनाने की जो प्रक्रिया शुरू हुई इस देश में कि कैसे किसी को दुश्मन, आभासी दुश्मन दिखाया जाए, तो वो आभासी दुश्मन दिखाने की प्रक्रिया जब शुरू हुई तो उसमें मुसलमानों को जिस तरीके से प्रोजेक्ट किया गया, बतौर गौ हत्या करने वाले मुसलमान होते हैं, लव जिहाद करने वाले मुसलमान होते हैं, और इस तरीके के तमाम नैरेटिव इन्होंने बिल्डअप करने शुरू किए। जब 2014 के बाद से जो है वो थोड़ा थोड़ा मुझे लोगों के अंदर असुरक्षा की भावना बढ़ी है और उसको जो है बढ़ाने में मीडिया का बहुत रोल रहा है। हेट्रेड वाले जो खासकर जो स्पीचेस हैं वो लगातार जो है मीडिया दिखाता रहा है।
And so, the inauguration of the Ram Temple is hugely symbolic. For some, it signals a fresh start, a way to move past a dark chapter of India's past. For others, it is Modi appealing to his Hindu base before the polls.
The whole strategy of the BJP is to hinge the Ram Mandir to the elections itself. If reports are true that it's not even complete, you can see scaffolding everywhere. I mean, ideally a temple should be open when it's complete, but they had to time it for the elections. So they would like nothing better to deploy this for election purposes. It's been taken over by this government, it's been taken over by the BJP, so it's no longer a religious event. Let there be no doubt that this is a completely political event. Right? It has nothing at all, I think, to do with religion and faith and worship and prayer.
If it was a political event, BJP's political event, why would the invitations be sent to all opposition members? The invitations were not sent by the government of India or the Bharatiya Janata Party. It was sent out by the Temple Trust. If Ram Temple was a political event, why would people shed tears that day on the opening of the Ram Temple? Why would the judiciary be there, the Bollywood celebrities, the common man, people from Sikh religion celebrated opening of Ram Temple, Muslims celebrated the opening of Ram Temple, the people from Christian community celebrated from Ram Temple. Ram belongs to everyone.
Nonetheless, the opening of the Ram Temple has rattled the opposition. It has left them playing catch-up in appealing to Hindu voters.
2024 elections, I'm sure this is going to make a huge impact, in a positive sense for BJP's vote share. If you look at how Ram Temple is making an impact in Indian politics, many leaders of opposition parties are sending out message to the Hindu voters that they are equally religious. They are all trying to attend religious functions in different states. Everyone has to send out a message that they are equally religious, they are equally Hindu, they are more Hindu than the leaders of the BJP. So that's one big change Ram Mandir has done in Indian politics.
But identity politics is a double-edged sword. In a September 2023 survey by the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, only 15% of Muslim respondents will vote for BJP, compared to 45% of Hindus.
हिंदू वोट एक तरफ जाएंगे, मुसलमान वोट एक तरफ जाएंगे और मेजॉरिटी में हम सरकार बना लेंगे। ये राजनीतिक द्वेष है। तो मतलब ये कहना कि पीस को प्रमोट करेंगे, मुझे उसमें डाउट है।
But in the end, it may be too simplistic to say the election hinges on identity politics. In the same survey by the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, respondents say the major issues facing the country are unemployment and poverty.
मुझे लगता है कि राम मंदिर के जरिए चुनाव नहीं जीते जा सकते। हिंदुत्व हो गया या राम मंदिर का इशू हो गया, ये केवल नैरेटिव सेट करने के लिए है और विपक्ष को मुद्दों से भटकाने के लिए, कि आम आदमी को ये समझ में ही नहीं आए कि साहब महंगाई कहाँ पहुँच गई है, बेरोज़गारी का आलम क्या है, कोरोना में क्या स्थिति हुई थी, ये लोगों की आंखों से ओझल हो जाए, इसलिए मंदिर का इशू या हिंदुत्व का इशू सामने आता है।
Will Prime Minister Modi's performance on bread and butter issues lead to a BJP sweep? Or could it prove to be a liability? The gleaming Ram Temple is not the only new site in Ayodhya. The city is undergoing an unprecedented metamorphosis.
पूरा अयोध्या चेंज हो गया। जो यहाँ पे जो सड़कें थी बड़ी पतली सी रोड्स और पुराना माने हिस्टोरिकल प्लेस था ये, नवाबों के समय का जो है, लेकिन वो अब जो है वो सारी रोड्स जो है एकदम नैरो होती जा रही थी, तो उनको सबको जो है 4 लेन और इससे जो है करके कनेक्ट किया गया। अयोध्या का रेलवे स्टेशन वर्ल्ड क्लास रेलवे स्टेशन बन के जो है रेडी है। वो जितने भी जो है यहाँ पे बहुत सारे लाखों की संख्या में श्रद्धालु तीर्थयात्री जो टूरिस्ट हैं, रिलीजियस टूरिज़्म, तो उसके लिए जो है पूरी अयोध्या प्रिपेयर है, पूरी तरीके से तैयार है।
A brand new parliament building in Delhi, Miles of rails, roads, and runways. Solar panels blanketing vast fields. Infrastructure development is one of the most tangible signs of Modi's tenure. Even in one of India's oldest cities, rejuvenation has come. It's Varanasi, Prime Minister Modi's own constituency. Since 2014, when Modi was elected by its residents, the city has undergone a sea change. The river banks have been cleaned and upgraded, and wide corridors have been created to smoothen access to holy sites for pilgrims. Each day, 36-year-old Sonu Nishad plies the river in his boat, giving tourists a view of the ancient city from the river.
वाराणसी बहुत चेंज हो गया कि इस समय टूरिज़्म बढ़ गया, मोदी जी के आने से टूरिज़्म बढ़ गया और साफ़ सफाई हो गया और अपना कॉरिडोर बनवा दिया मोदी जी ने, नमो घाट बनवा दिया मोदी जी ने। अपना मोदी जी संसदीय क्षेत्र है इनका और ये सारा कार्य मोदी जी ने करवाया है और योगी जी ने मिलकर।
Sonu's income has gone up as more tourists flock to the pilgrim center.
सारे यात्री आते हैं, यहाँ घूमकर खुश होकर जाते हैं काशी में, और मोदी जी ने टूरिज़्म बढ़ा दिया है तो और अच्छा हमको उपलब्धि मिलती है। कांग्रेस 70 साल राज किया, कुछ भी नहीं किया, कुछ भी कांग्रेस कुछ भी नहीं किया, घाटों का सफाई नहीं किया, न घाटों का निर्माण बढ़िया करवाया कभी।
Prime Minister Modi kept the focus going that India's reform trajectory has to improve. He ensured that some of the pivotal reforms around infrastructure, and towards the second half of his tenure rule, he focused on improving India's manufacturing. He brought in production-linked incentives, and he saw massive uptake. So I think this 10 years of Prime Minister Modi, he's consolidated the comparative advantages that India has, presented it as a very attractive use case before the rest of the world. It's an attractive alternative to China.
But not everyone is happy with Modi's reforms to liberalize and modernize India's economy. India imposes a price floor on key crops, with the government guaranteeing a minimum price to farmers. This is known as the minimum support price. In 2020, the Modi administration proposed agricultural reforms to diversify the supply and demand for crops. The farm laws were introduced to allow more market forces into the sector, allowing farmers the freedom to sell their output to whoever they want. But farmer unions were worried this would drive prices down, and the backlash was fierce. The farm laws were eventually shelved. This February, the issue would rear its head again. Farmers want more concessions and price guarantees from the government.
किसी भी सरकार का आकलन उसके अपने वादों से करते हैं। मोदी जी अच्छे दिन के वादे करके आए थे कि महंगाई कम होगी, भ्रष्टाचार ख़त्म हो जाएगा। यहाँ तक कि उन्होंने तो कहा कि जो अखबारों में हम लोगों ने पढ़ा कि हर व्यक्ति के खाते में 15-15 लाख आएंगे। किसानों की आमदनी 2022 में दोगुनी करने का वादा हुआ था, वो पूरा किसान आंदोलन इस देश ने देखा। जो वादे थे वो वादे तो पूरे नहीं हुई, और इसी वजह से आज थोड़ा सा नाराज़गी आपको दिखाई देगी।
Prime Minister Modi's economic liberalization also saw the end of diesel subsidies early in his term. A move which upset people like Shamim Nomani, whose family produces exquisite Banarasi saris in Varanasi.
अब जिस पावर लूम का 150 रुपया महीना बिजली आता था, अब उसका 2500 रुपया महीना आएगा बिल। तो आप देख लो, फिर वो जो उनको पहले ही सिर्फ मजदूरी मिल रही थी, अब मजदूरी भी नहीं मिल पा रही है, तो वो कैसे व्यापार कर पाएंगे? आप सर्वाइव कर पाने की स्थिति नहीं है। तमाम लूम बंद हैं, लोग पावर लूम बेच के रिक्शा चलाने लगे, लोग परचून की दुकान खोलने लगे, पान और चाय बेचने लगे। बिल्कुल होगा, 5 साल पहले और 5 साल बाद में बहुत अंतर होता है। लोगों को सच्चाई अच्छी तरह से समझ आ चुकी है इस सरकार की कि ये किस तरह से पोलराइजेशन करके अपनी सत्ता को बचाना चाहते हैं। तो इस बार तो मोदी जी बहुमत से बहुत दूर रहेंगे।
And there are other cracks in Modi's economic narrative. According to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, unemployment hit a 2-year high last October. Among graduate youths, the jobless rate reached a reported 42%. In January this year, 5 million people applied for 60,000 police constable vacancies in Uttar Pradesh. Meanwhile, inflation hovers around 5%.
There is an unease about growing unemployment. There is an unease about growing, increasing prices.
नौकरियां नहीं दे रहे हैं, रोजगार नहीं दे रहे हैं। जब पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट और एमबीए किए हुए लोग स्वीपर का एंट्रेंस देने, स्वीपर की नौकरी के लिए फॉर्म भरने लगें, तो आप उस समाज और उस देश में और क्या उम्मीद कर सकते हैं?
Yet, despite the headwinds, the Modi administration made a bold move. In the latest budget, the government did not resort to giving freebies ahead of the elections. Instead, there were cuts in major subsidies for food, fuel, and fertilizers. A move that supporters say is financially prudent. The opposition, however, has criticized the government, saying it is biased in favor of the rich. Meanwhile, the opposition parties have countered the BJP government with concessions of their own. In West Bengal, a scheme called Lashmiya Banda, launched by the opposition state government, provides financial assistance to low-income women.
আমি তো প্রত্যেক মাসে লক্ষ্মীর ভান্ডার পাই। এই লক্ষ্মীর ভান্ডারের টাকাটা পেয়ে যা নিজের মনে একটা আনন্দ আছে যে সরকার আমার কথা ভেবেছে। এই টাকাটা আমি পাই। আমার মেয়ে থাকতো, আমার মেয়ে নেই, কিন্তু আমার পরিবর্তে অন্য যার মেয়ে আছে সে তো টাকা পাচ্ছেই। বিয়ের সময় মেয়েরা যে 25,000 টাকা কি এখন 30-35 হয়েছে। বিয়ের সময় যে রূপশ্রীর টাকা পায়, অনেক মায়েদেরই এই টাকাগুলো পেয়ে সুবিধা হয়েছে।
There are other schemes of various state governments, some ruled by opposition parties to help the poor. 35-year-old Reshma in Delhi makes ends meet by stitching badges on school uniforms and getting free rations supplied by local authorities.
सरकार की तरफ से मेरे को ये सुविधा मिली है, बस बिजली की बिल से थोड़ा राहत मिली है, पानी वगैरह से राहत है। बस में जाती हूँ तो बस भी फ्री है, उसमें किराया भाड़ा नहीं लगती है। बैठती हूँ तो बस में बैठ के जाती हूँ, तो दवाई लेने भी जाती हूँ तो जैसे टेस्ट वगैरह होती है वो भी फ्री है। राशन कार्ड भी फ्री, मतलब राशन जो घर में चलती है वो भी फ्री मिलती है मेरे को। 15 किलो गेहूँ मिलती है, 10 किलो चावल मिलती है महीने में।
Reshma's husband, who drove a rickshaw, died last year, leaving her alone to raise her 3 children.
हस्बैंड की डेथ होने के बाद सरकार की तरफ से जो चीज़ मिल रही है उसी चीज़ से मेरे खाने पीने के आगे मैं बढ़ रही हूँ, नहीं तो मुझे बहुत मुश्किल हो जाती, नहीं तो मुझे आगे आगे लोगों के सामने हाथ लाना पड़ता, वो करना पड़ता। इस चीज़ से मैं नहीं हूँ, अपने घर में बैठी हूँ।
In the end, will handouts and freebies work to sway voters?
Patronage politics can never be a good thing, but my own sense is that there is an overstatement that parties are winning election only by doling out freebies, because if that was the case, then no ruling party would lose election. All ruling parties are in a position to dole out as many freebies as they want. Yes, people who benefit from the welfare schemes do tend to vote more in favor of the ruling party, but that's not the sole factor of mobilizing the voters.
A lot of parties are increasingly getting into a competitive freebie culture. That's where the problem is. When the elections are going to happen, these political parties come up and they promise the voters the moon. They don't know where the money is going to come from, and typically you see that most of these parties end up bankrupting these state finances, and that's really worrisome. A lot of Indian states at a state level are bankrupt because of this freebie culture.
The political tussle will become more intense as the election draws nearer. And for the first time since Modi has come to power, the major opposition parties have come together, arrayed against the BJP. Can they stop the political juggernaut? As India gears up for its general election, Prime Minister Modi isn't just looking to win. He wants to win big. Of the 543 parliamentary seats up for grabs, the BJP wants to win 370 seats. A big jump from the 303 seats they won in 2019. On the success of the state elections, the ruling party fancy their chances.
It's not if the opposition will lose big time, opposition is losing big time. And that writing on the wall is clear, where the opposition itself doesn't have unanimity amongst themselves, even how to contest the elections. The people of India will vote only to bring Prime Minister back on the hot seat for the third time in a row.
But whether the BJP can achieve such a margin of victory will depend on battleground states, like the most politically volatile West Bengal. It's April 2021, election time in a typical locality on the outskirts of Kolkata. But one house on this street is about to be attacked. It's the home of Sanmoy Banerjee, BJP leader who contested the West Bengal State Assembly elections. It's a state where the BJP is the main opposition party. Sanmoy was not at home the night of the attack. Instead, he was at the local police station to lodge complaints about attacks on other BJP workers. Sanmoy claims the attacks were political intimidation.
আমি বাড়ি থেকে ফোন পাচ্ছি, আমার স্ত্রী ফোন করছে, আমার দাদা ফোন করছে যে তুমি কোথায় আছো এখন, বলে আরে আমাদের বাড়ি তো বম্বিং হচ্ছে। আর আমি যখন টেলিফোনে শুনছি, আমার দাদার সঙ্গে আমি কথা বলছি বা আমার স্ত্রীর সঙ্গে কথা বলছি, তখন সেই সময় বম্বিংয়ের আওয়াজ পাচ্ছি যে বাড়িতে ধুমধুম করে কাঁপছে বাড়িটা। সঙ্গে সঙ্গে পুলিশকে বললাম, পুলিশকে বলছে দেখবো বলে পুলিশ তখন টাইম কিলিং করছে, অর্থাৎ অপরাধীরা বেরিয়ে যাবে তারপর হলো। রাত্রি তখন 1টা, সেই সময় এই ঘটনা আমার বাড়িতে ঘটছে এবং সেই সময় যে ঘরটাতে বসে আমি রাত্রিবেলা পড়াশোনা করি বা কাজ করি, সেই ঘরটা ইনসিডেন্টলি আমি আলোটা নিভিয়ে গেছি, রাস্তার ধারে বাড়ি, দোতলায়, এবং সেই ঘরটাকে ওটা টার্গেট করতো। এবং আমি যদি বাড়িতে থাকতাম, অবধারিতভাবে সেই রাতটাই আমার জীবনের শেষ রাত হতো।
West Bengal's 42 seats makes it one of the biggest prizes in the coming polls. With both the BJP and the opposition hoping to wrest seats from their opponents, West Bengal will see some of the most bitter politicking. And here, things could turn bloody.
I don't rule out some kind of violence erupting in Bengal. I don't see that happening in other states. In Bengal, I think it is a political competition, the keen political competition which makes the atmosphere very, very charged, and that is why we have seen some violence in Bengal in the past election. I really hope that political competition should not result into political violence, but given the political temperature going up in West Bengal, I don't rule out.
कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी जब सरकार में थी तब भी उस तरह की घटनाएं सामने आती थी, ममता बनर्जी के समय वो तब भी और जब बीजेपी ने प्रचार अपना किया उस समय भी बहुत सारी घटनाएं सामने आई थी। तो ऐसे लगता है कि बंगाल की राजनीति में हिंसा रही है। तो चूँकि बंगाल की सियासत में पिछले 4 दशक में जो हिंसा की प्रवृत्ति रही है, तो उसमें ये घटनाएं हुई हैं और डेफिनेटली जो भी लोकतंत्र में विश्वास करता है वो घटना की निंदा करेगा। और
Currently, West Bengal is an opposition state, governed by the Trinamool Congress or TMC.
আমার পার্টি তো 2011 এসছে, এটা বেঙ্গলের লিগেসি। সিন্স 60s প্রথমে নকশালাইট, তারপরে সিপিএম, তাদের এগেনস্টে আমরা চেষ্টা করে লড়াই করে আমাদের প্রচুর মানুষকে হারিয়ে মানে তাদের মৃত্যু বরণ করতে হয়েছে। এটা বেঙ্গলে এটা ট্র্যাডিশন হয়ে আসছে, এটা আজকে নয়, টিএমসি তৈরি করেনি, এটা নকশালাইটদের আমল থেকে তৈরি করা।
In the rest of the country, the political contest may not devolve to violence, but it could still be fierce. Major opposition parties have united against the BJP. In July last year, they formed the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, commonly known as INDIA.
I think the only way to challenge BJP was to form an alliance. If they had managed to form an alliance, if they managed to put up one candidate against the BJP's candidate, at least in 300 constituency, if they are able to do that, they can at least contain BJP to some extent. When I say contain BJP, maybe they could contain BJP to 270 to 80 seats, if they are able to do that.
But the alliance has already hit major roadblocks. Its convener and Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar has joined the BJP alliance. Should the pro-BJP mood in the country spread, more political parties could leave the opposition grouping in the coming days. The Congress Party, nonetheless, thinks numbers are in their favor.
Let's look at it statistically. In the last general elections, the BJP got about 36-37% of the votes. That means 64% of the votes came to the opposition or who were contesting against it. The simple conclusion of that is that there are more people who are against this particular government and led by the Prime Minister than who are for it, right? I think that we are on a very, very strong footing. The other thing is that simply because of the way the economy has shaped up, I think that because there is so much of high levels of unemployment, because this government has been unable to provide jobs, I think there's going to be a huge backlash about the claims of this government.
Yet, in one area, Prime Minister Modi has a clear edge over the opposition: geopolitics. Modi has raised the international profile of India during his tenure, putting the country on the same footing as other great powers.
So there are unease about unemployment and price rise. There are several indications for that. But why BJP still manages to win elections after election? Because Narendra Modi is seen as a prime minister who has lifted India's image in the world. He's seen as a strong leader, and many people believe that India is at a stage where you need a very strong person to lead the country.
So I believe that a lot of global problems which require global leadership to take decisive decisions around, Prime Minister Modi will come in and fill those gaps. So he will no longer remain just a leader of India. He will certainly go out and fill in the shoes of being a global leader. So I see him in that role.
I don't think he's going to win. I think it'll be disastrous for this country if he does. If India is doing very well on the global stage as claims are being made, then every person who's unemployed in this country and is poor should be told by this government, look, forget about your worries, put a smile on your face, India is doing so well. Look at us, a stature in the global world. Look at how people embrace us, embrace our Prime Minister. What are you crying about?
Whether Prime Minister Modi meets his 370-seat target, the Premier is already preparing for a third term. He set out his vision for the next 5 years at the recent BJP convention.
भारत को विकसित बनाना और इसमें अगले 5 वर्षों की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका होने जा रही है। अगले 5 साल में भारत को पहले से भी कई गुना तेजी से काम करना है। अगले 5 साल में हमें विकसित भारत की तरफ एक लंबी छलांग लगानी है।
What would another Modi term look like?
2047 के सपने को साकार करने का सबसे बड़ा
My own sense is that third term is going to be more firm. Modi would be more firm. My own sense is that BJP with a much bigger majority, Prime Minister Modi is going to emerge much stronger. The government will be able to take decisions which maybe people may not have thought of.
He would not be too worried about, where is his political capital being spent and how does he do a balancing act. I think he would be much more confident, and he would ensure that all the continuity that he has provided for the past decade, that narrative goes on, and he's able to deliver on big economic agenda items that he holds very dearly. Some of that centers around the fact that India becomes a manufacturing hub for the world.
The elections are likely to be called in the coming weeks. This will kick off a months-long period of campaigning and voting in the world's largest democracy. Almost 1 billion people will head to the ballot box. On one side is the ascendant BJP. On the other, the combined might of the opposition.
Finally, the BJP's bluff will be called. All their spin doctoring, all their falsifications, all their fabrications will not come to anything, and their divisive agenda, on which they always base every single election on, will sort of fail, because there is deep distress, there is deep unhappiness, I think, in the core of India, and I think people will recognize that and they will vote accordingly.
अगर इंडिया अलायंस एकजुट होकर के और सोशल जस्टिस के नैरेटिव पर आता है, इस मुद्दे पर आता है, तो डेफिनेटली मोदी जी के लिए बड़ा चैलेंजिंग होगा, और आपको आश्चर्य नहीं होगा कि अगर 24 में इंडिया अलायंस मोदी जी को पराजित कर दे.
The Prime Minister, he will win to ensure India stays on this path of becoming the global power, which it is. The BJP will break its own record of 2014 and 2019 and set new record in 2024, which will be hard to break for many political and many years to come.